This was a violent, brutal crime.
I know that she's somebody's sister, somebody's daughter.
In a case like this, the body told the story.
She was attacked so severely, as the most severe and the most aggressive attack that I think I've ever seen on a human being.
In the external examination, I had seen that there were 52 stab or slash type wounds.
There was a lot of rage involved here.
Do you know that I was kidnapped? Do you know that?
It had to be personal. It wasn't a random attack.
Every murder is a mystery. But a victim's body is a sea of evidence. Every fiber is a clue. Every wound, a piece of the puzzle. The medical examiner holds the key to unlock their stories and catch a killer. This is Secrets of the Morgue.
Newport Beach is a very affluent area. Waterfront properties, great shopping and restaurants, and just a beautiful place to enjoy the outdoors.
This is about as glamorous as you can get. Lots of yachts. I couldn't even afford an outhouse in Newport.
One summer's day, a beautiful afternoon on the Pacific Ocean, ends in horror.
The radio call came out as a dead body floating in the Newport Harbor. I drove from the station directly down to the yacht club. The body was still floating on the water. It was obviously a female. She was nude, but wrapped loosely in a sheet. When I saw this poor woman, I know that she's somebody's sister, somebody's daughter. This woman had numerous stab marks throughout her body. She was attacked so severely, as the most severe and the most aggressive attack that I think I've ever seen on a human being.
The woman's body isn't the only thing tangled in the sheet.
There was actually a folded knife. And on the knife was some blood and looks like some human tissue still.
The mutilated body is sent to Orange County forensic pathologist Dr. Sean Enlow, who has performed over 2,000 autopsies.
I like to solve puzzles, and forensic pathology is rife with puzzles that need solving. This was a violent, brutal crime. On her upper chest and neck and on her upper back, there were, I counted, I think, 52 stab or slash wounds.
Dr. Enlow's first job is to help detectives identify the woman.
The coroner's investigator, it's their crime scene, so to speak. The body is theirs, the crime scene is ours, and we work in conjunction with each other to try to determine what actually happened.
One of our first go-tos is their fingerprints. Her fingerprints were obscured because of her being in the water. When a body, living or dead, has been in the water, the balance between the different substances within our bodies and the water try to come to some equilibrium. So sometimes your hands or toes will turn kind of pruny and get kind of wrinkled. That can obscure to get a good fingerprint match. In this case, the fingertips were distorted to a point where we did not get a good match.
Without fingerprints, Dr. Enlow needs to find another way to reveal the woman's identity.
Dental records are often used, but we don't have a dental record database that's confirmatory. All of the ways that we traditionally use for trying to determine someone's identity have not been productive. We do not know who this person is.
For detectives, it's bad news. Investigating a Jane Doe case can be an uphill battle.
Identifying the female was primary to us, but also trying to find out if there were additional victims and who the suspects were.
Jane Doe cases can be so difficult to solve because you don't have the starting point of all investigations, which is, who is this person? Then you don't know who their enemies are. You don't know where she was last. You don't know who might have a motivation to kill her.
When you have to investigate a Jane Doe or a John Doe, the medical examiner's office is an integral part of a team. Without them, it just makes our job way more difficult.
Dr. Enlow continues his examination and uncovers another clue.
It was evident that she had had breast augmentation. Some silicone implants have a serial number and a lot number. These can be tracked back to the manufacturer. In this case, when I had the breast implants, we had at least another avenue to pursue as far as who the decedent is.
He sends the information about the serial numbers to detectives, who are still scouring the harbor for evidence before it's lost.
In my mind, the clock's always ticking from the discovery of the victim. First 48 hours, very important. From that point, you're running and gunning.
It's crucial that they collect anything that could potentially be evidence down the line. They need to just assume that whatever's in the area of the crime scene could be a part of the puzzle that will help them solve it.
It was a massive undertaking, and we had hundreds of yachts that I wanted to go out there to find out who was living on them, if maybe they saw something or they're potential witness, suspects, we don't know.
Within hours, Byington may have a clue.
We had a detective said that he had located a broken down cardboard box that was floating in the harbor. There was some printing on it that we could still tell belonged to a television set, and there was the barcode that was on there. We really didn't know what we were going to be able to retrieve from it.
At the morgue, Dr. Enlow examines the stab wounds covering Jane Doe's body.
In the external examination, I had seen that there were 52 stab or slash type wounds. What I don't know until I'm able to look more closely at the wounds is, are any of these potentially life-threatening, or is there another cause of death that is equally or more compelling?
It's truly critical for a medical examiner to keep an open mind in working up a case. You have to consider a number of possibilities, because if you don't, you shut the door.
I start making a diagram of the external examination. In this procedure, I am putting down the features of the individual stab wound, and that includes the length, the depth, its orientation, and its location on the body. The vast majority of the 52 wounds were not immediately life-threatening. These were ones on the hands, the arms, and the ones on the upper back. They ranged in their depth quite a bit, but none of them were hitting a major artery or vein.
But the wounds do tell Dr. Enlow something about how Jane Doe died.
Wounds on the hands and forearms are consistent with defensive wounds. Typically, if somebody is attacking you, part of the defense is trying to push them away and to keep them from getting where the weapon is going to do more damage.
What that tells us is that this is a fight. This was not a woman who was killed while she was sedated or in any other state of unconsciousness. This was a woman who fought back.
There were injuries on the front and back of the head, neck, and the upper chest, and on the front and back of the right thigh, but from below the breast to the pelvis, there weren't significant injuries.
This is a vicious attack done by a person or persons with the intent to kill. The fact that she was stabbed 52 times suggests that this was not a kill in self-defense, that this was something that was planned. It was something motivated by a deep hatred of the person.
But 2 of the 52 wounds Dr. Enlow identifies are unique.
There were 2 slash-type wounds on the throat. One got the carotid artery, one got the jugular vein. Either of those could be lethal within minutes. So the most immediate cause of death would be these 2 wounds.
The autopsy has determined how Jane Doe died, but the central mystery remains.
What we know right now is we have a woman that's been severely and aggressively attacked and killed, and so now we need to identify her and hopefully find out who was responsible for it.
The serial numbers from the breast implants give detectives their first solid lead in the case.
We were able to identify the manufacturer. They were able to identify that they belonged to a Barbara Mullenix, who was 56 years old.
Then they get a second lead that launches the case in a new direction.
The detective that was researching the cardboard box was able to identify through credit card records the purchaser of this TV, and his name was Bruce Mullenix. We had just heard Barbara Mullenix's name, so right away we started gearing up again to go track down where they lived.
Records reveal the victim isn't from Newport, but from nearby Huntington Beach.
We notify the Huntington Beach Police Department that we have a homicide victim and that that person's last known address was in their city. They would start running record checks on that address and identified both Barbara and her husband as living together. However, they were divorced and they had a 17-year-old daughter, Rachel, living with them also. We call that a clue.
A brutally murdered woman found in Newport Harbor has been identified as Barbara Mullenix of Huntington Beach, California. Local detective Steve Mack joins the investigation.
The best way I could describe myself as a detective was tenacious. If you committed a murder, I was going to do everything that I could to find you. I received a call from Sergeant Dave Byington of the Newport Beach Police Department. He told me about the body that they recovered from the harbor the day before, and that they'd identified the victim as Barbara Mullenix. And he asked that we go to the residence until they could arrive with a search warrant.
Police are worried that something has happened to Barbara's ex-husband, Bruce, and their daughter, Rachel, inside the home.
We got a judge assigned a search warrant for the location, and my detectives, along with Detective Mack, processed the interior of the house.
It was a two-story condominium. Downstairs was unremarkable. It looked like it was well lived in, but there was no evidence of a crime that could be seen. No bodies, no other suspects hiding there, no sign of forced entry. We checked upstairs at that point, and on the landing outside of a bedroom was trash that was consistent with packing of a television set. We checked that bedroom, and it was obvious the television that was once in the box that was found was on the wall. The room had an appearance of belonging to a teenage girl. Her dresser drawers were empty. Her clothing was gone. It led me to believe that perhaps Rachel wasn't harmed, but had run away. We entered into the second bedroom. I wasn't really 100% expecting that we'd find the crime scene there. But once we walked in, there was no doubt. We were able to see blood spatter on the wall, around the window, at the headboard, on the nightstand adjacent to the bed, and on the floor. On the wall leading from the master bedroom back into the bathroom, we could see what was obviously, to me, a blood transfer on the wall. First assumption was it was transfer from somebody's hand touching the wall. There was no doubt at this point, based on the blood evidence, blood spatter, the blood transfer, it's clear someone was murdered in this room. And I had every reason to believe that it was Barbara.
While forensics collects evidence in the bedroom, detectives are surprised by an unexpected visitor.
While I was on the perimeter of the crime scene, Bruce Mullenix walked right up to me and identified himself and wanted to know what was going on. And I told him that we'd explain everything in a minute, and then I went and got Detective Mack.
He didn't seem shocked that his condominium was surrounded by crime scene tape and uniformed police officers. I told him that we're conducting a homicide investigation. And he paused for a moment, and then he said, "Is it Barbara or Rachel?" I told him that it was Barbara and that we can't find Rachel.
My fear, and Detective Mack's fear, was the same, that she was also the victim of foul play or a homicide or injured somewhere.
Bruce then tells me that he hasn't been able to make contact with Barbara or Rachel for 2 days. And that's highly unusual with Rachel because she is constantly in contact with him via text messaging or cell phone calls. I asked Bruce how it is that he came to live with his ex-wife. He told me that they'd originally divorced in Oklahoma City, and he moved to California.
Barbara takes custody of Rachel and moves to Florida, but their new life is short-lived.
Sometime later, Rachel called Bruce and said, "Mom has no money. We need to come live with you." Bruce wasn't real excited about moving in with Barbara again, but Rachel pleaded with him.
The Mullenixes have an unconventional way of living in a home, that's for sure. So now they're living as a divorced couple, and they each have their own rooms.
I thought that was extremely odd, the fact that this gentleman was living with his ex-wife in the same house and their daughter. Usually if you're exes, you don't live together. And that was just another kind of the hair in the back of my neck, thinking that somehow he was responsible.
Detective Mack asks Bruce where he's been for the past 7 days.
Bruce told me that he had been up in the city of Fresno at a meeting regarding his employment.
He may have an alibi, but investigators are suspicious of his attitude about Barbara's murder.
Most people demand to know what's going on. That's their house. Why can't I go into my house? Where's my ex-wife? Where's my daughter? None of that came out of Bruce. It made me suspicious that perhaps he already knew what was going on and just wanted to find out what we knew.
Detectives continue to press Bruce for answers, while Dr. Enlow works to identify the murder weapon and the killer.
Sometimes the body can tell us things about the weapons involved in the death. In this case, we had 52 stab or slash type injuries. A folding knife was in the bedding that was wrapped with the body. There were injuries that were wider than the blade of the knife and some that were deeper than the length of the knife. This folding knife could not have caused all of the injuries that I saw on the body.
Dr. Enlow looks closer at Barbara's wounds and makes a disturbing discovery.
There is a gray object that is located between the eye and the eyelid. An x-ray was done, and the x-ray shows that there is a knife. It's been driven into the head for its full length. I've never seen anything like this before or since.
The location of the knife reveals a gruesome new detail about the violence of Barbara's death.
It does not cut the eyelid. It does not burst the eye. That's telling me that this blade was hammered in either while the decedent is dying or is already dead.
Dr. Enlow removes the knife from the skull and sends it to detectives.
The handle of that particular knife matched the handles of the utensils that were in the drawer of the Mullenix kitchen.
We could tell that there was one particular knife that was missing out of the set. And it matched the same one that we found in Barbara's body.
If somebody grabs a knife from within the residence and commits a crime with it, you would think that it's somebody that lives there. That further added suspicion that Bruce, the ex-husband, could be involved in this homicide.
Detective Steve Mack has confirmed that Barbara Mullenix was murdered in her bedroom, and her ex-husband, Bruce, is the prime suspect.
Usually the ex-husband or ex-wife in these types of cases are the first suspect because they're the ones that have the close contact with the victim. They're the ones most likely to have animosity towards the victim, and they snap.
Bruce claims that he couldn't have killed Barbara because he's been out of town on business.
Many criminals have a sense of hubris. They believe that they can get away with a perfect crime and that they can elude and outsmart detectives.
To confirm Bruce's alibi, Detective Mack needs to know when Barbara died.
Getting the time of death or approximate time of death from the pathologist is extremely important.
One of the ways that we determine time of death is algor mortis, which is the characteristics of the body to cool after death. But it is different in air than it is in water. In this particular case, the body was put into a body of water, Newport Harbor.
Dr. Enlow can use the fact that the body was in water to his advantage.
Even though someone is in a body of water, that doesn't prohibit decomposition from occurring. But she was relatively identifiable. She didn't have decomposition. So my estimate of the time of death was at least a few hours and probably not more than a few days.
Armed with the new information, Detective Mack drills deeper into Bruce Mullenix's alibi.
Bruce told me that he went to a conference in the city of Fresno on September 12th and was away from the residence until he returned late in the afternoon on September 14th. Barbara's body was discovered on September 13th, which is in the middle of the days that Bruce said he was gone.
Detective Mack needs to narrow the time of death further if he wants to eliminate Bruce as a suspect.
We began door-to-door canvassing of neighbors to see if anybody could give us any information. A resident that lived next door to Barbara Mullenix said he was awakened around 2 o'clock in the morning on September 13th to the sound of a struggle. Speaking with another neighbor, he said sometime around 2:30, he heard the sounds of a box being dragged along the concrete. He looked out the window and he saw two people putting a box in the back of Barbara Mullenix's station wagon. What that says to me is that this occurred on the early morning hours of September 13th when Rachel is supposed to be home with her mother.
With a clear time frame, Detective Mack needs to determine if Bruce's alibi holds up.
Based on interviews with the hotel staff and other witnesses at the conference, it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, for him to drive from Fresno, 4 to 4.5 hour drive each way, commit the murder, clean up and dispose of evidence in the body, and return to Fresno by the time conference started the next morning. In my opinion, at this point, Bruce is no longer a suspect.
With Bruce in the clear and Rachel still missing, detectives worry she's been abducted by the real killer.
Nobody's been able to contact her for 2 days.
To find her, they need Bruce to reveal everything he knows about his family and their broken lives.
Investigators always want to know everything they possibly can about the victim. So who is out there who might be an enemy? Who were they with in the days leading up to their death? Were they dating anyone? They need to understand what was going on in the victim's life.
During the investigation, Bruce also told me that Barbara had a difficult past. That at one point, She had been raped. So all she had in her life to keep her going was Rachel.
The relationship with Rachel and her mother was very codependent. Rachel decided that she didn't want to go to school anymore, and she convinced her parents that she didn't need to go to school. So she was home with Barbara most of the day. I think the interesting part about Barbara Mullenix was that, by all accounts, she was the life of the party. She was social. I think she would be described as a fun woman, except when she drank too much.
Barbara was an alcoholic. She got verbally and physically abusive when she drank.
Barbara's drinking may have played a role in her death, and Rachel may be the only one who knows, but she's vanished.
We didn't know if she had been kidnapped, if she had been murdered. We had no idea where this young woman was.
I asked Bruce if he could tell me any further about Rachel. He really didn't have an idea of who her friends were, except her new boyfriend that she was spending all of her time with. Bruce told me that the new boyfriend was named Ian Allen and that he was 21, 4 years older than Rachel.
Ian and Rachel appeared deeply in love, but Barbara wasn't so supportive.
As time went on, Barbara became extremely jealous of Ian spending all his time with Rachel, and that's when she started making threats against Ian. Threats to tell his employer that he was a drug dealer. Threats to go to the district attorney's office and report him for statutory.
Barbara's determined to break them up, while Rachel tries to protect Ian and their relationship.
Rachel had her parents sign this document granting permission for Ian to have sex with her and avoid the statutory laws. In California, statutory laws prohibit a 21-year-old to have sex with a 16-year-old because that's not the age of consent. It's 18.
Well, there were three things on my mind at this point. One, Rachel herself is a victim of a homicide. Two, Rachel's been kidnapped by whoever the killer is. Or three, she was physically involved in the homicide.
Ian Allen is now Detective Mac's #1 priority. But there's a problem. Ian has also disappeared.
We went to Ian's residence and spoke with his parents. The last time Ian's parents saw him or Rachel were about 6 hours before the body was found. The parents said that Ian was a good kid growing up, and the worst thing that we were able to find about Ian is he got a speeding ticket.
Ian's parents also tell detectives that they know all about the fighting between Rachel, Ian, and Barbara.
About a week prior to this, Rachel had been at their house and had fallen asleep while watching television with Ian. Rachel had a curfew that she apparently missed, and that made Barbara angry. Barbara came to their residence at 1 o'clock in the morning and was banging on the door and yelling for Rachel to come out. Rachel went downstairs, and Barbara grabbed her and dragged her off to their car, and they left, leaving the Allens somewhat dumbfounded by what just occurred.
Then Ian's parents give Detective Mac some alarming information.
It was discovered that they were missing a .38 caliber revolver, and now our fear was that Ian was in possession of a handgun. We contacted friends of Ian Allen and asked if they knew the whereabouts of Ian and Rachel. One of the friends said that a few days prior, they had been at a beach party. Ian was there, Rachel wasn't because she was at home and forbidden from seeing Ian. Ian had a couple of drinks and said that he was going to kill his girlfriend's mother. And he was going to drive her to the desert in her car and blow the car up. His friends didn't take him seriously, so one of them said, "I wouldn't drive out to the desert, I'd just throw her in the ocean."
Detective Steve Mack now considers Ian Allen the prime suspect in the murder of Barbara Mullenix and the disappearance of her daughter, Rachel.
And it's clear to me that the animosity that Ian has for Barbara is insurmountable.
Ian's anger toward Barbara could explain why her death was so violent.
There was a cluster of superficial injuries on the upper back. The fact that they're all together and so shallow makes me think that the intent was more injury or expressing their anger than it was of trying to kill.
The fact that the stab wounds on Barbara's face were done after she was already dead indicates that the person who committed this had a great deal of rage towards Barbara.
The term overkill is often used in forensic cases in which there are injuries that are produced that are not needed to cause the death.
Just 24 hours have passed since Barbara's body was found floating in the harbor.
At this point in the investigation, time is still of the essence. We still have to worry about Rachel's safety and make sure that she's not a kidnapped victim or a homicide victim.
Detective Mack presses Ian's parents for more details about their son and Rachel.
Approximately 10 o'clock in the morning on the 13th, Ian and Rachel came to the Allen residence. Ian went to his bedroom and packed a duffel bag, and Rachel used the computer. The Allens agreed to let us search the computer, and that's when he found MapQuest directions on how to get to Florida from Huntington Beach.
Well, we knew that Barbara and Rachel had lived in Tampa, Florida.
We obtained Rachel's phone records as well as Ian's, and we did find phone calls to someone in Tampa, and ultimately learned that she had called an ex-boyfriend and said that she and Ian needed a place to stay for a few days.
According to Rachel's friend, Rachel sounded happy and elated to be coming to Tampa. Nothing about kidnappings or being in danger or code words or anything like that was uttered.
It was my belief now that she was on the run with Ian. I no longer have concerns for Rachel's safety and well-being. I now have concerns about getting her in custody for murder.
To track the fugitives down, detectives accessed their credit card records.
In the afternoon of the 14th, Ian Allen's gas card was used at a Chevron station in Sulphur, Louisiana. While other detectives were trying to use the computers to find out what the next big city was, one of the old-time detectives grabbed a big old Rand McNally Road atlas, opened it up to Louisiana, and found Sulphur and went, Lafayette. So he called the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office and said, hey, can you look for him?
The police had set up on I-10 and blocked off the freeway so that no traffic could get through. They stopped the truck. Ian yielded to the police, and they were both taken out of the car.
Rachel Mullenix and Ian Allen are arrested and held in custody, while Steve Mack flies to Louisiana to confront them in person.
In attempting to talk to Rachel, she kept claiming that she was kidnapped and held against her will and didn't know what was going on. You understand what you're under arrest for?
No, no one will tell me anything what's going on.
Okay. You are under arrest for the murder of your mother.
Do you know that I was kidnapped? Do you know that?
I know that's what you're saying.
What do you mean that's what I'm saying? It's
We
true.
have physical evidence to the contrary.
What do you mean?
We have physical evidence that you're an active participant, and that's what I want to talk to you about.
Please let me
Okay.
talk to you, please.
Okay.
I wasn't. I want my mom back.
She was trying to cry. She's a terrible actress. I told her I didn't believe her. And I've watched you cry and stuff for 20 minutes, and there's not one tear has fallen from your eye, landed on your jumpsuit or
Yeah, I've
anything
been
else.
crying. Have you not asked
Your
these
eyes
people?
aren't red at all.
Have you not asked these people? I have to be crying. I have to be crying.
Rachel refuses to confess. Instead, she tells Detective Mack a graphic story of how Ian killed her mother.
I was asleep. It was the middle of the night. I heard my mom scream my name. I ran in her room and I saw Ian standing there on top of her, stabbing her.
She tried to deny everything and that she tried to push Ian off, and Ian pushed her against the wall and knocked her out. I explained to her that I knew she was lying, I knew she wasn't kidnapped, I knew he wasn't holding her against her will, and she just kept denying and denying and denying. Your mother was brutally murdered.
No, I didn't know. I didn't stab my mom. I didn't do that.
I concluded my interview with Rachel and went over to speak to Ian.
What I'm asking is there any way, though, to get her off the hook, or?
No.
None at all?
No. He tried to deny that Rachel was involved, said that she had been kidnapped and she should be sent home to her father. He was accepting all the blame and saying that Rachel had nothing to do with the stabbing of her mother. I knew he was lying.
Ian Allen has confessed to the brutal murder of Barbara Mullenix.
Let's go back to the stabbing incident. Start over.
I stabbed her on my own.
Okay.
But Rachel Mullenix, Barbara's daughter, refuses to admit guilt in the crime.
I didn't kill anybody. I didn't kill my mom.
Investigators believe there's a lot more to their story.
We're shocked that Ian Allen is insisting on taking the blame for this murder. And he wants, in his mind, to do the honorable thing.
He was saying that she was kidnapped and we could let her go. She had no involvement. And I said, I'm not going to let you sit here and lie to me. I know better.
What I need is the absolute truth. Trying to protect Rachel is not necessarily in your best interest.
He's telling me how he and Rachel were in love. Barbara was interfering with the relationship and trying to control and dominate the situation. And that on the night of the occurrence, he went over to Rachel's house at about 1 in the morning. He had a knife with him, but it was a small pocket knife with a locking blade. And he didn't think that was going to be enough to scare Barbara. So he went into the kitchen and grabbed 2 other knives.
I held the knife right to her throat, and she just started screaming, Rachel, Rachel, help me, he's trying to kill me. And I tried to move her head over to the pillow to shut her up, and it cut her throat, and it just kept.
Ian confesses to the murder, but he still maintains Rachel is innocent.
Well, if I didn't sit there and stab her, how can I be charged with murder?
Ian says it was all me. I took her. I did all the killing.
Their story falls apart when investigators analyze security video of the couple's road trip.
Footage at a gas station in Louisiana shows Rachel Mullenix walking freely throughout the mini-mart that's in the gas station. At some point, she comes over to Ian in a very loving way as he's using the ATM. She goes and gets a drink of something by herself. She goes to the cash register and pays for it. And then they both get in the truck and drive away. Rachel Mullenix looks very much at ease. No evidence of any woman who's ever been through anything traumatic, much less a kidnapping.
To prove beyond a doubt that Rachel is an accomplice and not a victim, investigators seek Dr. Enlow's expertise.
Out of the 2 knives that were recovered, they do not account for all of the wounds.
Looking at the wounds, looking at the body, looking at what are likely or unlikely scenarios. The table knife is not sharp enough to have produced the injuries on the body. The folding knife was not possible to cause at least some of the injuries on the body. So there had to be at least 1 more knife.
The body is telling us the story. Barbara is telling us the story. She's telling us unequivocally that there's another knife out there.
Given that there are at least 3 knives it is more likely to be multiple assailants.
We know that all of the wounds were inflicted at approximately the same time, one after another, until the victim was dead. So either Barbara Mullenix was killed by a ninja who can swing 3 knives, or there were 2 perpetrators.
It makes more sense. It's more probable that more than one person was involved.
In August 2008, Rachel Mullenix is found guilty of first-degree murder. 2 months later, Ian Allen is also convicted. Both are sentenced to 25 years to life.
There were numerous points where Rachel could have stopped this from happening if she was truly not on board, or maybe this got out of hand. But I was present when they read both verdicts on both Ian and Rachel. And Rachel, to me, they were dry tears. Nothing rang true with her. There was no doubt in my mind that she was responsible for killing her mom.
I believe that Rachel was the mastermind and put this whole thing in motion. And she kept prodding it along by sending him constant texts. In the 2 or 3 days leading up to the murder, there were 464 text messages between the 2 of them, with the final ones being after her mother's murdered, it says, "I love you." In my 16 years of homicide investigation, this is among the most unique and the most horrific that I was involved with.
I don't take any personal sort of glee in somebody being sentenced, but I do take the satisfaction of trying to speak for the decedent and to contribute to the justice for them. I do take satisfaction in trying to do that to the best of my ability.
Those hands of Barbara told us the kind of woman she was. She had a fighting spirit, and she fought all the way to the end. And I'm sure that the greatest heartache was the betrayal of her own daughter.